1, 2, 3. Yeah!
This is Zion Clark, famously known as the wrestler born without legs.
How are you going to wrestle without legs?
He's a badass.
A lot of people think that's laughable.
Unless you're Zion Clark.
Netflix #1 doc for how long now?
Best short documentaries in the world for about 3 years.
People complain that you have some advantages. I mean, who's the who does that?
No one had what I had.
People would discriminate against him. Other teams would look at him and make comments.
Boom, suddenly all these cameras in my face, I would just shut it down and be like, I can't do this.
He very easily could have just thrown it all in. He had no stability in his life. He had no family.
I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't a good kid.
I feel like I could destroy anybody.
That was a recipe for disaster.
He just didn't have anybody.
How did all that stuff in your childhood affect who you are now?
She was doing heavy drugs while she was pregnant with me. It was just a straight war zone.
I got starved and beaten a lot.
I was getting bullied in middle school. People just let it happen. You know, I'm the weird kid with no legs.
Just a horrific case of abuse that's been kept hidden for years.
I'd do anything I possibly could do just to see how much I could get away with. I remember happened yesterday. I was in 2nd grade. And the one foster lady, she threw a wooden chair at me and split my face up. I went to school, and I tried to tell them that she threw the chair at me. Not everybody believes a kid. I'm 8 years old. No one says anything, and then they call the mom. I go back home, and guess what? There'd be times I'd be locked in a room, maybe 2-3 days. Once a day, get a piece of bread and half a glass of water. That went on for a while. That's what I used to be. I used to be tiny, just pretty much skin and bones. I was getting bullied in school. I was getting bullied in middle school. People don't stick up for me. People just let it happen. You know, I'm the weird kid with no legs. I would go to school and I would cry as a kid. I would be terrified to go.
One foster sister, the only girl that really stuck up for me in the house.
And, you know, she stuck up for me. People don't stick up for me. No one really wanted to be my friend. She was my friend.
I woke up for school one day and there's ambulances outside. I walk in there and I was like, what's wrong with Hannah? And they're like, just get on the bus, get on the bus. And I was like, no, what's wrong with Hannah? They were trying to get me out. I wouldn't move. I wouldn't be budged. She got sick overnight. She was suffocating. Her lungs had filled up. She had this look on her eyes, she couldn't talk or nothing, but she had a look in her eyes. You just saw the life leave from her. That's probably the breaking point to me where I just didn't give a shit about nothing.
I was a bad kid. Once I got to middle school, so now I'm 12, 13, 14, I would get in trouble. I'd run from the cops. I'd throw stuff at cop cars. Anything I possibly could do just to see how much I could get away with. And I remember one day I come home from school and my caseworker's there. So it makes your heart beat a little faster. So I'm like, oh man, what did I do this time?
At that point, honestly, I didn't care either. You know, I was at the point where I was like, whatever happens, happens. I really don't care. I don't see a future for myself. I don't see myself even getting a normal job. I was 16 when she took me in.
He came into my life when the caseworkers had reached out to me and said that they needed a placement for a young fellow.
They approached my mom, who was only taking in girls at the time. They were like, hey, we exhausted all our options on this kid. They were like, we don't know what to do with him. It's either going to be he going to jail or he going to a group home.
At first, he was just so angry.
When I was living there, I got into some trouble with the police. And instead of taking me to jail, they brought me back to my mom's house. And I'm thinking all right, well, I'm gonna just pack my bags, get ready to go. Sitting in the back of the cop car in my driveway, in handcuffs, and I'm just sitting there man, this is it. They talked outside the car for about 15 minutes. I couldn't hear a word. They took the handcuffs off, and I went inside, and she sat me down. And instead of screaming and yelling at me, she just spoke to me calmly, and I could feel the love in her voice, even though she was upset.
She said, you gotta be someone better than what you are right now. Next time you get arrested, there's a good chance they won't bring you back to the house. And I didn't want to do that. It kind of opened my eyes for a second.
I really had to do some soul searching. I'm starting to think like, man, I want to see what happens if I really like try hard and try to like be a better version of myself. Every day I'd stop sitting in the back of the class. I would sit in the very front. I would ask my neighbors if they needed help with anything. She really like showed me how to be a man.
The biggest lesson I've had to learn is that things will not always go your way, but you have to work with what you got. I still remember my very first practice I ever went to. My mom would be like, "What are you doing today?" I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna go wrestle with Coach Donahue." I walked in, I didn't know what anybody was doing.
Coach Donahue's right in there. He got real excited, he waved. I just remember I worked with him for like an hour and a half after the practice was over, and I went back every day.
Let's go. I was a hyper kid, so I got to go to wrestling and I'd blow off all my energy from the day. Like, I had a lot of struggles in the sport, but like I never stopped doing it. Didn't win nothing. Didn't win a single match my freshman year. Didn't win a single match my sophomore year. I've really made it a point to get better at wrestling. I didn't really hang out with anybody. I'd refuse to. I'd be gone 3-4 hours because we're going over technique. It's not that I loved it. I felt a sense of urgency to really focus on it because I wanted to be better. I didn't want to have another year like the last 3 years. And I didn't know how I was going to do at the start of the season. I had no idea. I was nervous. And I was finally starting to learn what I can do with my body to enable myself to beat these guys.
Senior year came around and she was at that first match. I won 15-0 just because my mom was there.
It's a very demanding sport. It takes a lot of your time. It takes a lot of your focus. It takes a lot of discipline and a lot of hard work.
Practice was Monday through Friday. I would be training Monday through Sunday. No days off. I put in all the extra work that I could.
I come out the gate, first 9 matches of my senior year, I just didn't lose.
Our next guest is going to blow you away.
He's the Massillon native who became a top wrestler despite being born without legs.
Today, he's a world-class wrestler and track star.
I was in class one day, and the athletic director knocked on the door and was like, "I need to see Zion right now." And so I'm like, "Oh man, what did I do this time?" He closes the door of his office and he sits down. He said, "There's this school up in Cuyahoga Falls. Only about 100 kids in this little elementary school, and they were Syrian refugees." He said that the school showed him my documentary, and they all drew me pictures, wrote me letters. From their letters, I saw a lot of myself in them because now they're in foster homes. I told him, I said, "Is there anything I can do for these kids?" Within a couple days, they didn't tell the kids, they just had them in the gym, and I came in and their eyes lit up. I spoke to them, and I was able to resonate with them on just a different level. After I got done, this one girl made me a shirt that said, "Be a Zion."
My mom, she opened my eyes so that there is a better world for me out here than what I've been dealt so far.
People are gonna throw curveballs at you. People are gonna be cruel and mean. When you have to put in real work and you have to go through real struggle, you have to go through real suffering, real loss, real sacrifice. That's what it is to be human. Things will not always go your way, but you have to work with what you got. Being born without legs hasn't stopped me from doing the things that I want to do. Your own thoughts hold you back from what you can actually do. And I'm no different from you. I'm no different from anybody anywhere. The only difference is I tell myself in my head I want to do it. I tell myself that consistently every single day when I wake up. Sometimes the only thing stopping you from reaching your dream is you.